I am awkward, but that gesture wasn't. I think that was the breakdown starts now. Hey Rick, how you doing?
You know, I'm better than I was the last time. And that's all we can say in this life.
I was gonna say, right now we're doing day at a time, minute at a time. It's like, how am I feeling right in this moment? Being very present.
Roll through.
Happened. Yeah, lots happened since, because we were together on Monday for the inauguration, and lots happened since then.
You know, we've had a slew of unconstitutional, illegal, ill-tempered, ill-considered, idiotic, and backward and revanchist executive orders. We've had continued talks about taking over Greenland. We've had the president saying that we're going to throw FEMA into the dustbin of history and make states take care of themselves when natural disasters hit them. I could go on, but my voice was already kind of raggedy, so let's do a show about it instead.
I think that's a great idea. So let's start off with the news du jour. It feels like the thing that sucked the air out of the room. Everybody's been talking about it, and it's probably in many ways a distraction, but I think we do need to talk about the fascist salute, the Nazi salute. When somebody told me it happened, I refused to believe it. I was like, that has to be disinformation. This is just meant to trigger us. That couldn't be what it is. And then I saw it with my own eyes, and I tried to look at it at different angles, like on my phone. I was moving my phone around. I was like, maybe from this angle. And I'm like, no, that's definitely what that was. And I think what I'm more disappointed in is the reaction by everyone around it, because I would like to think that we're at the point in our society where we can just call something.
Call a Nazi a Nazi? Yeah.
Call a Nazi.
I will say this. If Elon Musk was just a random tech guy, okay, and not a South African multi-billionaire who has replatformed hundreds, if not thousands of alt-right, neo-Nazi, white supremacist people on his social media platform that he bought, and that if he wasn't part of a claque of Silicon Valley weirdos who believe that democracy is overrated, I might have said, well, that was just a weird, expansive gesture. But he is, in fact, the guy who has restored the accounts of hundreds or thousands of neo-Nazis to his social media platform, where there is no longer any punishment on that platform for saying, hey, Hitler was a good dude. Hey, the Holocaust wasn't real. All those things used to be part of the content moderation of the platform. Now, they're more likely to throw off a person who criticizes the neo-Nazis that are on the platform than the neo-Nazis that are on the platform. So if that had been Elon Musk, if it had been another person, I might have said, but instead, we also know the guy is a sociopathic shit poster. And so he's doing this as a big troll. He's doing this to get love on 4chan. And here's the thing. You know, the people who thought it was a Nazi salute, doesn't matter what Maya May or Rick Wilson think. If the fucking Germans think it's a Nazi salute, it's a Nazi salute. And that in Germany is a Hitler salute is a Hitler salute is a Hitler salute. Okay. Hitler handen. So that idea that this was a hilarious troll, I'm sure was in his mind. Okay. I'm sure that's where he started. And by the way, excuse me, folks, I've still got the black lung. By the way, the idea that he was actually doing the heart and throwing your heart out gesture, he has done that before in other video. He knows the difference between these two forms. He knows the difference.
Yeah, this wasn't a you get a heart, you get a heart, you get a heart. No, this was I am a Nazi, I'm a Nazi, I'm a Nazi. And here's the thing, he's always had this Nazi-like behavior, as you've said, Rick. And so this was just a punctuation on that. It's like, if we just examine all of the behavior, the evidence was always there. It's just now he can say it with his chest full-heartedly, which is what he did. And so
That's right.
it was a punctuation, an exclamation point, if you will, on everything that this man has stood for. And the fact that there was more outrage on a bishop asking for mercy from Republicans than there was outrage or even some sort of not even out. I mean, I don't think there was a single person who was like, yeah, that was a bad thing to do. And
I mean, it's fascinating to me though, and I wrote a little bit about this the other day. We are in a transitional moment where Trumpism is becoming the official religion, and a sort of subset of Christianity. And what Bishop Budd had to say was not a radical attack on Donald Trump. It wasn't some pointed finger, you're a fascist, you're a monster. She asked Donald Trump to live and represent the values of mainstream Protestant Christianity, which include mercy, kindness, caring, compassion.
The basics.
That is right. That is the way that, and look, divinity class has been a long way in my rearview mirror. But I will tell you, that has always been a fundamental aspect of Christianity, which is understanding and compassion, and the fact that Trump took offense to it to the point where he, as a president of the United States, is attacking a religious leader, tells you a lot about where they stand and where their headspace is about what Christianity means anymore. It means what Donald Trump says it means. That means it's not really Christianity at this point. That means it's something much different. And frankly, I think this is actually this fight I actually think is a good thing. It is a reminder that a lot of the more normie Christians, and the folks that aren't in the hot evangelical or Pentecostal sector, who do believe in good work, who do believe in compassion, who do believe in kindness, who do believe in treating the least of us well, I think it's going to have to give them a moment. And they may think, oh, she's a liberal Episcopal bishop, but I repeat myself. But the message was spot on. It was absolutely it was biblically appropriate for the moment she was addressing. So, and I thought it was, once again, as almost always with Trump, it just reminds you what a small man he is, what a shitty person he is.
But not just him, his fellow Republicans. Mike Collins suggested that she be deported.
Since she was born in New Jersey, and there are those of us who can argue about the statehood of New Jersey, but not many. I mean, I think we should. Don't we have a clip of JD looking?
Yeah, we have a clip. We have a clip of the sermon. Let's look at it.
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples.
I think what's important about the way she did this is that it was in such a calm manner. They tried to portray it as aggressive. They tried to portray it as if she was calling him out. And she wasn't even doing that. I actually didn't even like the way a lot of people on the left talked about this sermon, because it was a very calm
Bishop
and collected. Right, like she's like a comedian on stage.
I know my Episcopals. Okay, She could not have been more right up the middle Episcopal. That's the classic Episcopalian tone, style, affect, presentation, and I'm sorry that St. John's Church near the White House, isn't as fire and brimstone Franklin Graham as he might like, with the Donald Trump singers coming in, but there was nothing wrong or inappropriate with that. And I go back again. The free speech party, the we don't want to censor people party, they sure are working very hard to censor her right now.
Well, and I think they know that they're in this zone of where they have to push back because they need to make an example about anybody who attempts to point out that this regime is pushing the line far beyond what anybody actually thought they would. Like there were so many people who this week are like, oh, I didn't actually expect Trump would do some of the things that he said he was going to do because even though he said he was going to do those things, and they're like, oh, Project 2025, what? And so this is like this critical period in time where I think those people who do have a voice and do have a platform have a responsibility to speak up and speak out loudly. And so I think they were very freaked out to be confronted in a space that they felt was a safe space. Like they were like, give me a trigger warning before this bishop speaks, because they all looked very, very triggered in that row. I mean, Melania's face was she was so angry about mercy and so angry about immigrants, asking for mercy for immigrants when she herself was an immigrant. So I would like,
look, if we're going to do mass deportation in this country based on, and a lot of the executive orders are looking so overly expansive that it could be a single irregularity in your immigration papers at any point, I'm going to have to see all of Melania soon because she was not here. I'm betting you good money she was not here on the same sort of genius visa that
special talent visa
came into the country on. But
she might have special talents we don't know about. I don't know.
I can only imagine. I'll tell you one of them though. You could see it at the entire inauguration with that hat and that look. It's like touching X, kissing X.
Yeah.
But the reason I think this confrontation or this collision between cruelty and compassion was important is because in this gigantic sweep of executive orders, and I want to take 1 second, folks. Look, every president does executive orders. They have every right to do them. They have every right in the world to do them. It is a long-running 250-year element of being the president is that some things fall outside the ambit of legislation and they require the executive to take action. Every president does them. So the doing them alone is not illegal or inappropriate. But I break them down into a couple categories. A lot of it is very performative. The DEI stuff, the attacks on the gender question, the Muslim ban he's going to do again in these executive orders, leaving the WHO right as bird flu is hitting, telling the National Institute of Health it can no longer do grants for cancer research and other disease research. Those things are sort of performative, but the through line of all the performative ones is the cruelty. They are meant to invoke fear in immigrants. They're meant to invoke fear in LGBTQ plus folks. They're meant to invoke fear in Muslims. They're meant to invoke fear in the hearts of people who are marginalized in this country. And go ahead,
Rick. I feel like people are at a point now where people are a little more fearless than they have been in the past, because I feel like this administration, the last time around, kind of pushed people to a point of breaking. And this is the first time Trump's in office post-COVID. And I feel like people discovered a lot about themselves during COVID, about their ability to act in a time of crisis. And so he's confronting an American public where people have survived crisis after crisis after crisis now. It's like, and so I don't think people are going to back down in the way that he wants them to back down, which is why he has to work together with Facebook and Meta and Twitter and TikTok to be able to suppress speech. Because if you look at at Instagram right now, at social media, people are speaking out and people are saying, no. I mean, I'm absolutely loving that.
I have to say, I think first off, folks, if you don't follow on Maya on Insta, you are missing absolutely vital content, because every day it is inspirational and it is motivational, and it's also like centering yourself not just to survive it but to fight it. And I really admire the work you're doing on Insta, particularly because I think it's really, really strong. I think it's really smart, and gives people like not just the tools to cope, but to confront the problem, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I appreciate that. I like to think of myself as like a soul cycle instructor, but like for democracy on Instagram. And so I'm cheering people on, but I'm also like, we've got to do this, guys. And so doing a lot of fun stuff, but a lot of people are. That's what you're seeing, is that everybody's recognizing whether they have 200 followers or 2,000 followers or 2 million followers. Now is the time to use their voice, or never, because Instagram is pretty much trying to make it so that it's never. A lot of people saw hashtags for Democrat, for progressive, disappearing and not being able to find that kind of information. And so people are angry this time around. And when you put people up to a point where they don't have anything, yes,
they should be. And I'll tell you the thing that's got me the angriest today or this week. All of these executive orders, all this bullshit. One thing in particular has sent me into a sense of like genuine anger and regret about what my conservative former friends and allies now suddenly believe. They believe that because Donald Trump is president, that he can erase parts of the Constitution, in this case, the birthright citizenship provisions in the 14th Amendment, and that he can erase Congress's power to set the budget under Article 2, and just erase them, just get rid of them, just make them go away. If you have the president able to edit the Constitution as he chooses, this is not a republic anymore. It's not a constitutional republic anymore. It's a banana republic. If the president can just say the Constitution means X and not accept the plain black letter and legal definitions in the Constitution, then you're not obedient to the Constitution. And conservatives always said, oh, Democrats are the ones who will abuse power. They'll take away your rights in the So if a Democratic president is elected someday and he or she says, oh no, the Second Amendment requires that you must be a member of a military, a legitimate military unit to have a firearm, I'm going to rewrite the Constitution. How will conservatives feel then? Or if they say, we're going to be able to search your devices to make sure you're not involved in neo-Nazi stuff without a warrant, or search your home without a warrant. If they rewrite the Constitution, if anyone rewrites it, it's an incredible threat to this country. It's one of the things, folks, that we fight for at the Lincoln Project, is that this is not about liberal or conservative anymore. This is about whether you live in a country with the rule of law. It's about whether you live in a country with the Constitution guiding us. It's about whether you live in a country where the law applies to everyone, high and low, rich and poor, good and bad. And I just found that element this week of people defending Trump, the idea of rewriting the Constitution, reinterpreting the Constitution through an executive order. Now, I will say this, a lot of our viewers may not love Ronald Reagan, but one of Ronald Reagan's judges in Seattle, a federal judge he appointed in Seattle today, took up the case of this outrageous executive order. And this guy is by no means a liberal. It's a conservative judge. He tore their ass open. He beat them with a fucking baseball bat rhetorically. It was unbelievable. Go read the opinion, because he smoked them so hard. And I think, excuse me, it's the black lung. He smoked them so hard. And it is a sign, I think, of what you're saying. People are going to fight back. We're not going to be silent, including people on the bench. So anyway, say it the
well, and speaking of beating things with baseball bats, I think it's important to talk about this rule of law that has been completely upended, because that's what he's doing this week. He's trying to push it as far as he can absolutely go, and seeing how people will react to it. And so everything with not just releasing the January 6 folks, or as he calls them, the prisoners, the hostages, not just not just releasing them, but also floating ideas about inviting them to the White House. It just spits in the face of, like, I feel so bad for every single Capitol Police officer who was working that day, who was affected that day, for their families. Imagine how they feel right now. And the fact that he thinks he can get away with this, that he thinks that it's like treating people like playthings, like they have no emotional reaction whatsoever to the complete egregious slap in the face. And then to see people fall in line behind him. And I think it's causing a lot of cognitive dissonance this week for people in law enforcement. A lot of people who believe truly in backing the blue right now are going, okay, actually not us. As long as you get what you want, Donald Trump, you do not care what happens to us. You do not care what happens to our family members. It's literally all about Donald Trump. And so him releasing the J6 people isn't because it's for him, all for him. And so Mike Fanone, I want more of. We have the clip.
Let's play Mike Fanone's clip because it says it all.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I would say to Stuart Rhodes: go fuck yourself.
Okay.
You're a liar.
We didn't obviously get to beep that word out, but obviously, this is personal to you, Michael. This is very personal to you.
It's personal to all of us because we're all Americans. It's very personal to him. And when she says, "Oh, we didn't get to bleep it," you know what? We're at a point where somebody should be able to say, "Go fuck yourself" on CNN, because if we're going to put a man in the White House who incited an insurrection, who incited violence that led to people dying, and she's going to say, go ahead.
Yeah. You know what the actual obscenity here is? The actual obscenity is not Mike Fanone saying to Stuart Rhodes, "Go fuck yourself." The actual obscenity here is these monsters in Congress who were attacked that day by this mob, who hid behind walls and doors and benches, who were protected by the Mike Fanones and the Harry Dunns and the Brian Sicknicks and these other officers who were confronting a violent mob, they were sprayed with bear spray. They were sprayed with wasp spray. They were beaten with baseball bats, hockey sticks, flagpoles. They were injured. Mike Fanone was electrocuted with a stun gun so many times he had a fucking heart attack. These people, the people that are calling them hostages, that's the obscenity. That's the obscenity. Every one of these fuckers should have stayed in jail until the end of their terms. Nobody got a sentence there because they were Donald Trump fans. They got a sentence because they invaded the U.S. Capitol in a violent attempt to overthrow the United States government. They got a sentence. They caught a sentence because they were attacking police officers, because they were defacing and defaming the U.S. Capitol, because they broke into a federal building with chains and sticks and clubs and knives and guns. The real obscenity here is that this country, that the media in this country would spend 30 seconds on Joe Biden pardoning his family when Donald Trump has pardoned more terrorists than have ever been released into our lives before. And these people will form the cadre of a violent movement that will back Donald Trump up with violence and retribution because they know they'll get another get out of jail free card. They know they'll get away with it. They know that in the future, Donald Trump will once again pardon and protect them because they're his people. And the lawlessness is the point, guys. The lawlessness is why he did it. He believes very strongly that the rule of law, because he's a fucking villain, okay? He believes very strongly that the rule of law has to be destroyed. That's why he's going to put Kash Patel in charge of the FBI and the lobbyist Pam Bondi in charge of the DOJ, and why he's going to personally go after people who he thinks offended him. Mike Pompeo and John Bolton, two men I have no truck with, who I'm not a fanboy of either one of them. They are both under legitimate threats from Iranian terrorists. They both have a fatwa against them. He took away their security details this week. The pettiness and the retribution and the violence that Donald Trump enjoys, it's about lawlessness. He must not be bound by the law. If he gets away with it over and over again, as he has, it will slip further and further. We will invite authoritarian abuse. I have one piece of advice for people, okay? I have one strong piece of advice for you. Go on any number of the websites, Insurrection Hunters and all these other places. Know who these people are. Know who these people are. You should think about them living in your neighborhood the same way you think about a murderer moving next door. You should think about them as a domestic terrorist moving into your neighborhood. You should know who they are. You should keep an eye out for them. They are criminals. They are terrorists. Very, very few of them, only a handful that were in there for violent offenses, have shown even the slightest iota of repentance. In fact, you've got these guys out there right now bragging, I'm going to go buy guns, and they're talking about revenge. And the fact that Lauren Boebert is invited Stuart Rhodes, and she's taking him around inside the U.S. Capitol he tried to overthrow, is vile. It is sick. It is fucked up. The fact that Republicans, including members of the House who were cowering, who were crying, who were calling their families saying, I might not make it out, they're coming through the door, who are now pretending that these people are some kind of fucking heroes. Get the fuck out of here. Go fuck yourselves. Sorry.
I love that. I want no. I was ready to let you just keep going, because that's the exact energy that everyone needs to take into the next week, the following week, because he said he was going to be a dictator on day one, but if we keep pushing back, he can't be a dictator on day 1, day 2, day 4. And so it's important for people to see you fired up like that, Rick. I think the cure for the common cold is
still in this. Yeah, folks, it's why we're still in this fight, okay? There are plenty of people who are like, oh, you have to shut down now because Donald Trump is president. That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. You don't get to leave the fight. It's like Alexei Navalny says, you are not allowed to quit. So this week is going to suck, y'all. It has sucked all different ways. It's been horrible.
And next week too.
Oh yeah. It's been horrible for millions of Americans. It's going to get worse. Do not comply. Do not comply. Do not comply. Mm-hmm. Do not comply in advance. Do not comply in the moment. They do not and cannot break you if you refuse to comply in advance. They cannot break you if you keep pushing. They cannot break you if you are public in your opposition to them. You must continue the fight. We're going to continue the fight. Want to help us? Help us. If you don't want to help us, great. Either way. If I have to drive around in a fucking beat up van to continue the fight, I will. But I don't want to. But
we don't want you to either.
I like but look, folks,
life.
Do not be afraid the way they want you to be afraid. You should be concerned. Mm-hmm. You should be alert. You should be present. But don't be afraid and say, oh, it's all over. We've lost. It's all done. He's already losing ground. He's only at 47% approval rating, and it's going to go down. The things he's proposing, including releasing these fucking terrorists, are very unpopular in the polling. He's very unpopular, the things he wants to do. And Russ Vought, his Party 2025 budget director today, goes out and calls Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid a hammock that keeps people out of the workforce. What, do you think Granny wants to go back in the fucking coal mines? You think you want your 85-year-old grandfather to go out and be go out and be a server at Denny's? The fuck is that about? These people are going to fuck it up. Okay, Elon, he's fucking himself up. He had all this power, and yet he goes out this week and does a Hitler salute like an idiot. Mm-hmm. Can't stop himself. Trump can't stop himself. They lack the cognitive ability to control their shitty, horrible, dumb behaviors. And the things they're doing, price of eggs isn't going down. Price of gas isn't going down. None of the things that they thought they were voting for are going to happen. But we are going to jerk off talking about the Gulf of America and Greenland and invading Canada and invading Mexico. I mean, that's one, folks, by the way, just so you know, he just put 5,000 troops on the border. Here's the great part of this. I don't know if you guys remember this, but working in hostile desert environments has been a rough go for the United States for the last couple of decades. Try going up against the cartels who make the level of armaments that the Taliban and ISIS had look like, pop guns or BB guns. This is not going to go like he thinks it's going to go. This is not going to work the way he thinks it's going to work. The world is turning against him. They're turning their backs on this bullshit. When a Danish member of the European Parliament says, when he was asked about Trump taking over Greenland, he goes, the Greenland says, or the Danish people say, go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself is the theme of this show, the theme of the fight. And consider me an extended middle finger in this organization, deeply committed to the theme of go fuck yourself, Donald Trump.
Absolutely. My version of that is the no, the fuck you're not. Every time they try to do something that is very un-American, a friend of mine shared with me a memo that a lot of contractors receive telling them that they have to be on the lookout for any DEI initiatives that have been rebranded as something else.
Right.
Well, they're asking for the common person to snitch on their neighbor. And so it's not the fear that they're creating just with immigrants and the fear that they're creating with women or LGBTQ people. It's also the fear that they're creating in the friends and families of those people. Because if they're going to go into churches and they're going to go into schools and they're going to go into businesses, then that means that everybody who works at that business, everybody who goes to that school has to live with fear in their heart day in and day out. And so a lot of people aren't interested in living in fear. Not anymore. That is not, that's just not what people are in for. And so what's interesting to me is seeing people like Sean Hannity press him on the economy, and he's
the only thing he was pressing on in that interview was the bottom of Trump's feet as he gave him a foot.
But like Trump's on such a fascist role that I don't think he even realizes that what he looks like from the outside now. So he's speaking at the World Economic Forum, and I don't think he realizes that what world leaders are thinking and looking at him right now, because he's spinning out of control like the Tasmanian devil of fascism. Like
if Joe Biden already said, they would have said like, Joe Biden's mental health problems are accelerating. He's off the rails. He's crazy.
Yeah, but the world leaders aren't taking him seriously. Like he thinks they're taking him seriously, but the president of Mexico said she's in no rush to invite Donald Trump over for a state dinner. She's in no rush. And then I think in Brazil, they were like, oh, I like the way she's approaching this. I think we'll model the way we'll approach this. And so I think world leaders see him for who he is. And unfortunately, he's so wrapped up in a tizzy because he's got everybody here in the U.S. bowing to him, meaning all the Republicans are bowing to him and making excuses for him and gaslighting the American people. But from the outside looking in, everybody, they think he's an idiot, and they think everybody who's following him is an idiot. And so I think, like you said, this isn't going to play out the way he would like it to play out. And it's just on us to not get emotionally drained from the gaslighting, because I think a lot of people are expecting that they can shame them into to the right type of behavior. But you have to remember, when you're dealing with somebody who doesn't have morals, you can't expect them to follow the same moral landmark that we do. And so
Trump, he is at the end of the day, I've said this a million times, there is no better Trump. There is no better iteration or version of Trump. He will always be what he is. And right now he's in full fascist flower. And look, I got to say this though, I got to critique our media friends a little bit. Sean Hannity was obsequious as always, but I haven't seen anybody in the American media, anybody ask him a tough question yet. Not one tough question. They sat there in the Oval Office the other night, compliant. I'm waiting to see Trump get tough questions once again. I'm waiting to see who in the media is going to be willing to put their head up, because he's going to punch back at your network, at you, etc. But getting in his face is the way to do it. I mean, we're specialists at getting in his face at the Lincoln Project. We're specialists at it. And by the way, we don't just do it because it's fun, and don't just do it because we like to troll Trump. We do it because when you distract Trump, you get him into a fight, you get him into a frenzy, you get him into a distracted space, He's not doing the worst of the shit. We'll take the arrows for you. We'll take the heat with Trump doing this stuff. We have a plan. We know how to address the plan. We know how to keep Trump off balance. We're trying to do two big things, folks. We're going to stop and slow down the worst of the stuff that's coming. Those are legislative fights. Those include us advertising to senators who are on the fence about an issue here or there, advertising at House members to disrupt them, advertising at Trump to get him angry and distracted. But we want to do all this to set the stage for 2026. If we can set the stage for 2026, where Trump's approval ratings are low, where the Republican Party's approval ratings are low, where the divisions that we can help spread between Bannon and Elon and Susie Wiles and all the various moving parts inside Trump world. If we can go into 2026, which is 11 months away, guys, process that for a second. The campaign starts this fall. We need to be ready to win the House, and not by a small number. We need to win the House meaningfully. We need to take the speakership away from Mike Johnson. He's doing a pretty good job of getting it taken away on his own. We need to take it away from him. That stops everything in Trump's world. It dead stops it. It dead stops it. It's done. We need to make the Senate expensive, messy, distracting, horrible. There's 23 Republicans up this time. They've got the bad cycle this time. It's tough. A lot of red states, but we need to make them start to contextualize 2026 in every thought they have and make it fearful. That we want them to know that if they go in and vote for this tax bill that raises taxes on everyone who makes less than $1.5 million a year, that it's going to be a political stinker. We need them to know if they don't do things to lower the price of groceries and gas and energy and all that stuff, that it's going to hurt them. They won't, of course. But look, this is the work we do. We're your avatar. You know, as Donald Trump says, we're your retribution. He's the retribution for MAGAs. We're your shield and your sword here, much like the KGB was, the sword and the shield. But we're going to stay in the fight. Look, folks, if you can go, if you can spare it, we'd appreciate it. It's action at lincolnproject.us/donate. It's on the screen as well. We appreciate every donation. We put it to work. And unlike a lot of super PACs, we are focused on excellent communications. It's a problem that Democrats have had for a long time. They're not good at communicating. Their messaging is bad. Our messaging is good. You know, there's a great line in the newsroom where he says, "How can the Democrats be so goddamn smart and lose so goddamn always?" It's messaging, guys. It's messaging, it's advertising, it's communications, it's helping people understand on social media and in personal interactions and in writing and in media relations and everything else that we can tell a story for America that's better than the story Donald Trump wants to put America in. Because the story he wants to put us in is a nightmare. It's a horror story. It's a story of pain and misery and cruelty. We know it's going to be hard. We know it's going to be really tough, but we're here for you, and we're here in this fight. Thanks.
Can I offer a hopeful note? Because I'm feeling
sure. Because I'm a ray of sunshine.
I'm feeling oddly hopeful right now because one of the hardest things over the last 2-3 years was convincing people that Project 2025 was real, that Project 2025 was the plan. When I got super sad and super depressed, it was because I felt like I was screaming into the void about what was coming. And so now that things are happening and we are hitting that rock bottom,
right.
And people who thought that both parties were the same are seeing very clearly now that both parties are not the same.
No, they're not the same.
Like there's one party that has Nazis and there's one party that's got a good DJ and they're queer. Like it's like you.
And also
it's like, which party are you going to?
Enjoy going back to your $300 a month insulin, Grandma.
Right. So I think that puts us in an advantage because we are now not just the underdog, but the underdog who can now say, "Hey, look at this. We've got the evidence now. It's affecting your day-to-day life." So everything that we tried to tell you and warn you about, oops, we're not going to gloat in your face and say we tried to warn you, because now we're all suffering the consequences of elections. But now we can stop wasting energy and trying to convince people of all the bad things he's going to do, because he's doing them and then some. And people will remember, in this generation that is the 18 to 25, and these men who are now seeing bills come out that they're not going to be allowed to masturbate, once they have an actual visceral reaction of the kind of laws that because a lot of these young kids, these Andrew Tate followers who voted for Donald Trump, had no idea they weren't around for the first iteration of Trump. And so I'm actually feeling really good, because unfortunately, sometimes people have to suffer the consequences of their actions or their inaction in order to make better decisions. So this is the mom in me right now. It's just like, well, I guess you're going to have to go to your room and think about it. Think about what you did, and then come on out and make better decisions next election cycle, y'all. And so the work starts now, communicating with each other and also understanding where people are at and why they make the decisions they do. And so I invite everyone to start connecting and listening. Spend as much time listening to the Trump supporters in your life, and kind of ask them. Feel free to, put a little cognitive dissonance their way and ask them how those grocery prices treating you.
Yep. How those eggs doing?
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Okay.
I think I'm about snapped out.
Yeah. It's good to see you feeling better, Rick. I'm glad you're on fire tonight. I know that by next week you're going to be right as
Listen,
rain.
I got to tell you, this cold almost kicked my ass. Something about snow in the deep South this week kind of reset me emotionally. I'm like, it took a moment. I was like, I'm ready to go be a warlord again. So here we are.
Yeah. All right, let's do it. Get some rest.
All right, folks, we'll see you again next time on The Breakdown. We'll be back next Thursday. We might even pop in for breaking news if things go truly off the rails at some point. Don't forget, Elon Musk and a head of lettuce are roughly the same thing right now. Let's start the clock on that. What else? Check out Maya's excellent podcast, Punching Up. It's really fun. Really smart. I have 2 podcasts, the Lincoln Project podcast, which we're back to recording episodes now that I've got some of my voice back, and the Enemies List podcast. You can also check me out on Substack. We're everywhere all the time. So have a great night. Be good to one another. Be bad to Trump and good to one another. Let's go kick some ass. See you, folks.